everybody, my name is Souls Convoy, and this is my review of Mastermind Creations Ocular Max Perfection Series PS-17E Fortiflex, or 16E, check the title. This is a long name. This is Mastermind Creations' version of Armorhide from Robots in Disguise, the 2001 show, otherwise known as Car Robots. I also took a look at their version of Rotor / Hector. They called it Chops before, so another member of this set. I also reviewed Hasbro's Age of the Prime Skybite, which is from this series, but obviously a licensed toy, not an unlicensed third-party product. I picked this up from Planet Steel Express myself because it was like a thing where the set was initially released for conventions and their retailers and is now at mass retail. Shozy put up links, so I'll put their link to this figure in the description. And just getting right into it, I'm a pretty big fan of this guy visually. His proportions are somewhere in between, like, I guess he's like a type of like lean, tall. He's not like a huge beefcake usually as you'd associate a tank former with, but he is pretty hefty and chunky, but he does manage to look pretty athletic as well. I was afraid that his thighs might be too short, but they don't look too bad. I wish they were a little bit longer, but they also do bend here inside the knee. I'll show you later, so they don't look as bad bent as I thought. I want to get in on that head sculpt first of all. And I will say, I do wish this head sculpt was retooled. I believe it is exactly the same as the one they used for their G1 Brawl, which is fine. Armorhide does have G1 Brawl's head, but I wish it was a little more angular. However, I can't deny that metallic paint for the visor looks absolutely gorgeous. And for the most part, the sculpt is great and it looks expressive. So no complaints from me. There's also some tampographing here. This thing right here is crooked. It's apparently supposed to be that way. I think they should have just straightened it out, in my personal opinion. It would look nicer. I also do need some Combatron logos, so I'm waiting for Toy Hacks to make a set, maybe. Some black paint here for this detail. And let's get back to the rest of the figure. For the most part, looks pretty good. Paint is kind of scarce in this mode. There's some silver detailing, but most of it is conserved for the alternate mode, so I'll go over more there. For the articulation, you do have a 360-degree rotation at the head. You also have a ball joint, which gets you a little bit up and a nice amount down. But the head entire assembly is on like there's a hinge on the inside, so you can do like that and that. So you have pretty much unlimited range for how you want to, mess with that. If you saw his chest bobbling, it's because this retooled chest, which sits farther, is not pegged in. It doesn't peg in. If you want his chest to peg in, you can do the classical Brawl configuration, and that will peg in securely, but his chest will be flatter. I'll be using that for the articulation showcase because it makes things a little bit easier. It's not floppy, but it can be kind of annoying. There's a joint here and a joint here. You combine them to get 90 out. There's a 360 shoulder. You have a bicep swivel, which will get you 360. There's a double jointed elbow, which does have a little bit of, like, as you start to bend, reveals this piece. So I guess there is that. It's not exactly going to be very pretty when bent all the way, and it does only get you about, I want to say, if I mess with this a little bit more, I can maybe get 135 degrees. So not bad, but not perfect. We're gonna have a waist swivel, which gets you the full 360 if you wanted it, and his ab crunch will get you around, I want to say, I think that's 75 degrees. And I should really get a protractor. We also do have wrist swivels, before I forget, which gets you the full 360. And you have fingers. They're basically just like the pre-bent typewriter fingers. The thumb is on one ball joint, and the other fingers are all just pinned at the base knuckle. So not great. You can kind of get like this type of whatever, but I also want to consider that this toy is technically almost a decade old, the mold. the design work, I think, for the original Assaultus combiner set started, I want to say, in like 2014 or 2015. And I think they released all of them by 2018. So they are quite old at this point. So there's a little bit of leeway to be given. You do have hip skirts, which go out both forwards and backwards. And then you're going to have a 90-degree forward ratcheted kick. And then you're going to get about like 1 or 2 clicks back because of the turret, which is a little bit unfortunate. But, you know, it is what it is. You do also get the full splits. You have a 360-degree thigh swivel with no issue. And then the knees are going to be able to bend 90 degrees. Again, the thigh does look short when bent, but it's not as bad as I expected with these, you know, long lower leg, short thigh leg bots that these combiner set has. So it's not bad. I do wish the thighs were longer though, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It at least feels like there's like some significant difference here as opposed to their swindle mold where the knee bend was actually right here and it really felt like bending the knee was getting you basically nothing. I do wish you had a double jointed knee though. And the final point of articulation are these ankles, which only really bend that much. These are Bruticus's combined ankles. They combine together to be Bruticus's ankle tilt. So I kind of understand why, but I do wish they had a little bit more range. But other than that, pretty well articulated for a figure that is both all-in-one, nearly decade old, etc. Obviously some failings though for the modern era. In terms of accessories, you're going to get this blaster, which he can hold in his hand. And you know, just for the sake of the video, I'm going to put his thumb down. You don't have to put his thumb down. You can hold it just fine with his thumb up. But, or actually I'll do it with his thumb up. It's just a little bit hard to get this in on camera because I am quite far away from the figure. So he can hold his gun. There's that. He also comes with a set of anti-air guns, which are more for alternate mode. But you can put these on this tab on his forearm like that. And then like adjust them. And he can, like, you know, he can do something like that if you wanted to. Not exactly like my ideal look, but it is a possibility. That's it for accessories though. So kind of scars. I don't have his box. I do have his box, I just can't find it. He also comes with a display card and a stat card reader for the collector's card, and the stat card reader for the back of his box, which has the G1 style tech spec gimmick where you hold the stat reader over the box. Comparisons. So I'm just going to do the rest of the set right now. So here we have Fortiflex right here, Chops in the back right there, who I previously reviewed. Astrolift, who's another new member, actually came up before Fortiflex. I got them at the same time. And then Swift Lane, who is the first member of the set who I never reviewed. There is actually a lot of size difference here for a combiner team, which I actually really appreciate. I think a lot of combiner teams, everyone ends up being the same size. And it's really cool that these are, like, you know, different sizes. I think it's awesome. They're also different weights. Fortiflex here, Armorhide, he weighs around 14.5 ounces. Whereas, like, these two are basically 8 ounces and this guy's 10 ounces. So there is a pretty significant weight difference. I do wonder how that'll affect the combined mode, especially with the two legs being, well, one of the legs is like 6 ounces heavier. So I wonder how that's going to work. In terms of other comparisons with, you know, average size class toys, I guess, I really do need to get a leader class figure for size comparisons, I think, but I don't have. That was my lighting. I did catch it though. Voyager, Skybite. So I think this is definitively like just way too small. I think the other members are shorter and you could fudge it, but like I do think Skybite is too small for these guys. It's just painfully obvious. Deluxe, Core, and a similar military alternate mode flak. So he's pretty big. I think he's almost 9 inches tall. So he's well, I actually do have a ruler. What am I saying? Right. Ruler says he is 9 inches tall to the top of his shoulder. Obviously the cannon makes him like 11 inches tall, but you can't even see it. He does have the cannon is sticking out. But yeah, he is indeed 9 inches tall. So I will get him transformed and we will take a look at his alternate mode. Here we have him in his tank mode. Not going to do size comparisons, but this model of the Leopard 1, I believe it's a Leopard 1, correct me if I'm wrong. It's about 7 inches long from this point to that point, and then with the wonderful turret like that, he measures a total of 11 inches long. All the details come through in this mode. All the sculpting and greebling is on point. Like, there is so much effort put into this, whereas compared to, like, I guess contemporary tank modes, there's a box with a gun attached and some vague tread detailing, but this is very much trying to give off that real world vibe, and it is really working for me. Obviously some seam lines, but that's inevitable. The sculpting and the greebling is great. All that painted detail comes through. 360-degree tank barrel rotation, and it looks good from pretty much every angle at every spot. You even have painted soft plastic side mirrors so those won't break. These antennae come unattached in the box and are also soft plastic, so if you ever bend them because of where they are, you don't have to worry about them breaking. You can just pop them out, put them in hot water, reshape them, let them cool off, and then put them back in. You also have painted tail lights, which are awesome. More greebling and real world detail. My one complaint is this gap right here, and this is for one of the accessories, which I'll get to in a second. You have some play value with opening hatches and adjustable turret height. This part also like recesses into itself, which is super cool. It doesn't like have like a giant hinge here. It tries to hide the fact that there's a hinge here, which I just find to be awesome. And you can put one of these hatches down, for example. You can take his gun from robot mode. You just tilt in the handle, and then you put that right there, and then you have a gunner seat, which is awesome. Fantastic weapon storage, and not just storage, but like using the weapon in both modes. You can transform that anti-air gun assembly, well, now it's an anti-air gun, and you can pop that on back here. This part I don't really care for. I never like love this look, even if it is accurate to G1 Brawl, and I prefer to leave it off. The one caveat is that it does leave like a little bit of gappage here. Not a huge fan of that, unfortunately, but I do understand why this had to be included. I just wish it attached in a different way so it didn't take off those parts. Fantastic tank mode. Just getting into final thoughts here. Starting off, I want to say that I think it holds up pretty well for a decade-old toy. Obviously, in terms of posability, there are some things that are lacking, like a double-jointed knee, better range at the ankles, and just generally like a butterfly joint, but those are, again, modern innovations of the 2024-2025 era. And for a toy that was probably designed in 2014, 2015, I think it handles pretty well. The ab crunch alone, ages it better than contemporary figures, for example. The plastic and hand feel is fantastic, especially in the alternate mode, which really does feel like it's actually meant to be part of the appeal. It feels like it's a dedicated mode, not just an afterthought, because it has to transform, which I feel like a lot of masterpieces kind of maybe falling into sometimes, especially with source material alternate mode starting to pop up around the 3P NPC, like Fans Toys Blitzwing's new tank mode, or Magic Square Brawl's tank mode, things that are these abstract shapes that barely resemble what they're supposed to be, but resemble a time-saving animation frame. For robot mode accuracy, I get it, but the new trend of tune-accurate alternate modes is really killing Masterpiece for me personally. And this is a really, really appreciated aesthetic to handle and play with. As far as the combiner goes, I'm saving my thoughts for that once I have the whole set, but as a standalone release for $130, I do think it's kind of worth it. It's a pretty hefty and chunky guy, so I think it earns that price tag. But I would like it to be maybe $10 to $15 cheaper. At $115, I think would be really a sweet price point for this guy. $120. But that's pretty much all I've got to say. It's fun, it's beefy, the transformation is butter smooth, it's fluid, it uses a lot of cool tricks, do a lot of things with less parts, and the playability in tank mode is a huge part of the appeal to me. I recommend it, but I understand not everyone's going to share my tastes and or proclivities, but I do think it's worth considering. It's aged pretty well. That's it for me, guys. Peace out.